Good morning and welcome to a very large group of clients and friends who've come to talk about that most depressing of subjects, fraud. But that so many of you have joined us shows how seriously we all have to take it nowadays, and you are therefore very welcome. I'm here today with some of our experts on this and led by Stuart Newey, Managing Director in charge of our banking function, and with Jacqui, Hughes and Penny Mclachlan, who are both amongst our team of fraud prevention experts. They've all worked at the bank a very long time, and like the rest of us, have seen the developing, depressing story of increased fraud that we all face today. It is a big business, and it's increasing. It's probably increased even faster during lockdown. Well, various criminal gangs have been diverted towards this because they can't do other forms of crime so easily. There are lots of different techniques about, and the statistics show that we're more likely to fall victim to online fraud now than to any other kind of crime. And the numbers are big and eye-watering. Averages of 35,000 or so losses that people have with hits of this kind. So this is not trivial, and some of those are averages. So some of the crimes are even more successful than that. Lots of questions have been submitted in advance. We'll try and interweave them with the presentations that Penny and Jacqui are going to give, and Stuart and I will come in with some comments and some further questions. None of us are immune to this. There's a sort of feeling, oh, well, only silly people get caught by fraud. Well, perhaps we're all silly in that case, because my family has certainly been attacked. And we've been relatively lucky so far, but I say that keeping my fingers crossed. I'm older than anybody else in this, probably, well, certainly on the Coutts and Adam end of this, but cruelly, the elderly, and if they can identify people who are vulnerable, they go for them even more. So it's a particularly vicious form of crime. And there's plenty of things to look out for, and we'll run through them today. We'll start with a presentation from Penny and Jacqui, which will cover some of the techniques that the fraudsters use. They won't be able to cover all of them because they change all the time. I'm going to just mention one from my family. We had one that appeared to be from our accountants, long trusted and friendly accountants, telling us that we should pay some money to the Inland Revenue. And it is roughly the time of year, it is the time of year when you have to pay the Inland Revenue self-assessments. But it wasn't, it was bogus. Luckily that was caught by the bank. But it was very convincing indeed, and a new one on me, but probably not new on either Penny or Jacqui. So over to them to give their presentation, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. As William said, you're now more likely to fall victim to fraud than any other type of crime. Yet most of us think it will never happen to us. Last year, the amounts lost to scams ranged from a few hundred to hundreds of thousands of pounds. Half of those targeted by scammers were over 55, and the average amount lost to a client of the bank was around £35,000. So we know fraudsters will use different techniques to try and find out details about you. They'll gather snippets of information in an attempt to build a bigger picture, and will try and trick you into giving away information. For example, by sending you fake texts and emails. They'll often try and guess phone numbers and email addresses, or they may buy these from other fraudsters. They could search for you on social media, on sites like Facebook or LinkedIn, or look through the press for articles about you. They may even intercept your post or go through your rubbish. They need this information to make their scams seem more convincing and to ultimately get what they want, which is your money. They could also use what they know about you to steal your identity. They could apply for credit cards, bank accounts, loans, and other financial products in your name without you knowing. So how can you protect yourself to make it more difficult for the fraudsters to find out this type of information? If you use social media, Make sure that you check all your security settings and be aware of any personal information that you, your friends, children or grandchildren share on these sites. Many people unknowingly help criminals by oversharing personal information on social media. Information like birthdays, pets' names, children's names, email addresses and phone numbers, they're all priceless to a fraudster. If you wouldn't tell a stranger, don't post it. To guard against identity theft, ask for your credit report from a reputable company and regularly check to make sure nothing's been set up without you knowing. If you see something that you don't recognise, contact the company as soon as possible. And think about turning off all paper documents, as they contain so much information that's useful to a fraudster. These documents can easily be viewed online, and make sure that any that aren't paperless are securely stored or destroyed once they're no longer needed. The main way you can protect yourself online is by creating strong passwords. You should think about your passwords as the key to your online door. You wouldn't want to lose them, and you certainly wouldn't give them away. We're going to play you a short video now. It shows a reporter who goes out on the streets to try and get people to give away their passwords, with some very interesting results.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Has you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie.
Mm-hmm.
So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
So Jolie, 6, 12, 95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah. 468, and then Israel. It's only 3, but it's, you know, it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Like
so
what? Like what's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name.
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies, I understand we had some issues with our audio at the beginning, but I believe that they've all been sorted now. So an amusing video that hopefully you enjoyed. It certainly highlights how many people use things like their pets' names and their birthdays to create passwords. We would recommend that you use strong, unique passwords for each of your online accounts. That way, if there's a data breach in one of the services, your other online accounts are not at risk. And focus on making sure that you have a unique password for your online banking and your email account, as this could be used to reset other passwords. We prefer to call passwords passphrases, as they should be as long as possible. Use a phrase or a line from a song or a poem and personalise it in your own way. Maybe by using a capital letter, say every third or fourth word, or replacing letters with numbers and adding special characters. Where a website offers it, use two-factor authentication, as this adds an extra layer of security, and it's designed to ensure that you're the only person who can access your account. For example, Amazon requires you to enter your username and password, and then a code is sent to your phone, which is entered to complete the login process.
So picking up on this, Penny, you can check if your email password has ever been hacked. at this website here called haveibeenpawned.com. If it has, then make sure you change your password for your email and any other site where you use your email address to log in to keep yourself safe.
So thanks, Stuart. We've had quite a lot of questions coming in and questions before. Obviously, I'm referring to them by their first names. That's not, I hope people won't take that as too familiar, but we're protecting their identity. Just going back for a moment, Richard, I think it was, emailed in and said, if I've been scammed once, am I more likely to be a target again?
But I think picking up on your question, sadly, the fraudsters are really smart. And if they find somebody that they can defraud, then they pass those details around. So if you've already been subject of a fraud attack and responded in some way, then sadly, you're likely to see more attacks going forward.
I feared that was true. Thanks, Stuart. We've got another question from Arthur. Given that hackers have succeeded in penetrating, I don't know what, NASA's systems in Washington, how good are the security protections on computers and laptops? And how safe is internet banking as a concept?
So I think I can understand why people are worried about this. The systems themselves are really, really secure. But the weak link is you and I. So the fraudsters are not trying to sort of blow up the safe, i.e. the system. What they're trying to do is to get you and I to give away the codes so they can easily walk through the door in the system as though they were you and I. So on internet banking, we are the weakest link and we have to keep our passwords and identity phrases secure.
Thanks, Stuart. Well, I think we may have answered this question before, but it's come in from several people, so let's just reinforce it. Mike and Andrew and others have asked whether it is good practice to let your computer save individual passwords. And I think Penny had a word about this before, but what practical advice do we have for managing multiple passwords? Stuart, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, I do. So it is important to not use the same password across all of your logins. That just sets you up for a problem where one of those gets compromised. There are what's called password managers. And if you look at the National Cybersecurity Centre, they've got a whole list there of recommended sites that you can use to store your passwords. So we would recommend those. When it comes to letting websites remember your password and things like that, I would be incredibly cautious. And I would never do that for your email or for any financial service. Maybe you're home shopping at Next Account, you might take a different view of it. But for areas where you could lose some money, I would not get them to store the passwords on their sites. Now, just to add to that a little bit, if you use something like an Apple device, then actually they come already equipped with a password manager that will store the passwords on the Apple device. And that's a sensible way of going forward. But again, don't put your bank password in there.
Thanks, that's very clear. It's back to the presentation, I think, that.
So moving on now to some common scams. We're going to start by looking at text and email fraud. This is where a fraudster sends a message pretending to be from someone else, like your bank or maybe the NHS. If the message is sent via email, it's known as phishing. And if it's sent by text, it's smishing. Shown here is a good example of such an email. These types of messages will typically say that there's a problem with your account and have a sense of urgency to them, asking you to take some action. Thousands of people will have been sent this email and they are likely to be drawn towards the information as it appears to be from a trusted source on a very relevant topic. The fraudster is trying to get you to click on the links, but what you don't know is where those links will go. They may take you to a fake website, which will be asking for personal information, or they may contain malware, which we'll come back to later. Some more examples to look at here. Again, the fraudsters are pretending to be well-known companies. The emails look convincing and are inviting you to click on the links. The email pretending to come from the courier company took advantage of a current situation, as it was circulated around Christmas time when we were all shopping online and so expecting parcel deliveries. This one is particularly good, as no doubt you would want delivery of that parcel and are worried that, unless you update your address, your parcel won't be delivered. As well as being wary of clicking on links, also be careful around buttons like Renew Now, Confirm or Register Here, as these will have hidden links behind them, and again, you don't know where they will go. Like the scam emails we looked at, the fraudster is once again pretending to be someone you trust, but this time sending texts. HMRC would never contact you by text with the details of a tax refund, but the fraudsters are hoping that you will be interested and so click on the link. Fraudsters are able to make these fake messages appear in the same text chain as a genuine one, which does then make them really tough to spot. And don't ever text back stop or reply back or opt out of these messages, as this will just alert the fraudster that they have a live number and they may try for more interaction. The text on the very current topic of the NHS vaccines has a link that takes you through to an extremely convincing website. That asks you for your personal details or invites you to input your bank details to confirm your appointment. The NHS would never ask you to share your bank details to confirm your identity or your appointment. And as we know, the NHS vaccine is free. Also, never call up any telephone numbers that are included in texts without checking first that it's a known and trusted number. The number shown in this example could put you in touch with a fraudster who wants your personal details. Or it could be that the number will charge you an extortionate fee, and the first you'll become aware of it is when the bill comes in from your provider. So what can you look out for to help you spot scam emails and texts? The sender will often have an unusual email address, and by hovering your mouse over the address field, you can expand it to see the true address. Sometimes it will be really obvious that it's from a fraudster, but other times it may be much harder to spot, as the change may be very subtle. For example, changing the letter L to the number 1. But remember, it isn't always the case that just because an email address looks right, that it is. It could be the case that a genuine email has been hacked by a fraudster, and we'll come back to this later. Have a look at the greeting. Is it personal? Or do they just address you as Sir, Madam, or use your email address? Most companies will use your name. Is that your account number quoted? Scammers will often quote a random account number to make an email look more official, but in the hope that you won't check it's correct. And look out for any spelling mistakes or poor grammar. Most companies will not make these types of mistakes, and any should raise a red flag with you.
That ties in nicely with a question we've got from Elizabeth. I hope that our bank doesn't make grammatical mistakes. We try and stop that kind of thing. But she's asked how she can identify, and this is a good question, whether an email the bank has sent her is a genuine email from the bank. What should she look for?
That is a good question. And as well as the tips that we've already mentioned, our emails will always include personally identifiable information. So there'll be something like the salutation, your banker's name, your person number. This will be a reference that we quote at the bottom of many of our emails. So have a quick check, look for some of that personal information. And if it's not there, or of course, if you're just not sure, then give us a call on that trusted number to check.
Good advice. Thanks. Back to you again, I think.
Thank you. So earlier on, I mentioned malware. This is the term used to describe malicious software, and it's designed by fraudsters to harm your devices. Clicking on any links or attachments in the types of scam emails or texts that we've looked at can sometimes mean that malware is unknowingly downloaded. And once it's downloaded, it sits on your device, monitoring your activity. Malware can then allow cyber criminals access to your financial data, healthcare records, personal emails and passwords. The possibilities of the kind of information that can be compromised is endless. To help prevent malware attacks, make sure you have good anti-malware and antivirus protection installed, and remember to run regular scans of your devices. I'm now going to hand you over to Jacqui to talk about phishing.
Thanks, Penny. So now we're going to talk about telephone scams. These are known as phishing or impersonation scams, and often involve you being convinced by a fraudster over the phone to either pay away money or share personal information, such as your usernames, passwords, or codes. It used to be that fraudsters would pretend to be clients and trick the banks into making payments out of the account. But in more recent years, and with the advancement of technology, that's become much harder for them to do. So now they target the clients themselves and trick them into making payments for them. And they do this by impersonating people from trusted organisations like Amazon, Microsoft, HMRC, and of course the banks. One of their favourite ones is to pretend to be from the bank's fraud team. They will tell clients that they have a fraud on their account and they need to provide codes from the phone to try and stop the money from leaving. Of course, it's the complete and utter opposite. And these codes that are given out actually allow them to authorise payments. So I'm going to play a call now, which is a real fraudster trying to trick somebody. The lady happened to record all of her calls, and she was so angry that she'd been targeted that she contacted us with the offer of using the recording. The sound is a little bit muffled, but the clear voice you can hear is the actual fraudster. So that's the one to concentrate on. But it is particularly interesting because it's not very often that we get to hear a fraudster at work.
Good afternoon, Kendon. Can I help you?
Hello, good afternoon. Could I speak to Mr. Kay Paczynski, please?
Speaking.
Hello, it's Jennifer Lewis here. Bank Network Fraud Section. I'm ringing from the Payments Verification team.
Okay.
It's actually in relation to a system alert which is flagged up on your account today, in that we've received a rather irregular transaction request scheduled for close of business. We've actually received 3 consecutive electronic direct debit mandate requests, each for £900, including a total of £2,700 to debit your account from TV licensing authorities. However, there's no reference actually assigned to these payment requests, and they have flagged up in the system, hence my calling you. Are you aware of them at all?
No.
No, they are actually pending on the network frame, so I'm able to delete these requests.
From what account? From what account?
It's an electronic request made via debit card. I'm actually in the alert system. I systematically receive alerts here, and they flag up on the network
card
for me to void or verify.
To debit what account?
Once I actually clear you through, I do need to discuss the account in further detail with you, just to verify that you are aware of the...
I want to know what account you're talking about.
Yes, I do have to verify you as the genuine account holder in order to discuss the account.
And where are you from?
Detail with you. Bank Network Fraud Section. I'm in the Payment Verification team. So what I've got in front of me at the moment is a system alert which is flagged up.
Well, I don't have anything with I don't have anything with the bank.
So there ends the call. Once the fraudster realises that the target doesn't bank with us, she ends the call. There is no point in carrying on. But you can hear the phrases that she uses. I'm calling from the payment verification team. I need to clear you through security. She's very convincing, and I think she even sounds a bit rude. But you can see how people fall for this type of scam. Fraudsters are really good at what they do. So how can you protect yourself from telephone scams? If someone calls you that you're not expecting, ask why. Why are they calling you and what do they want? And give nothing away until you're completely satisfied that you are speaking to who they say they are. Never give out any codes to anyone. This includes one-time passcodes that we might send you for online purchases or codes from your online banking. Anyone that's asking for these will be a fraudster. And don't ever transfer money or make payment at the request of someone who calls you, no matter how plausible the reason sounds. The bank would never ask you to move your money, especially to a safe account. And fraudsters can also use software that makes it look like a trusted number is calling you, such as the bank or Amazon. So never rely on caller ID to identify who you're speaking to, because it actually means nothing at all. If you're not completely sure who's on the phone, end the call and take some time to decide if you want or need to call them back. Some good advice is don't be rushed, have a cup of tea and talk to someone that you trust. If you want our advice, then give us a call using a trusted number. If you do want to call them back, then try doing it using a different phone from the one they called you on, and don't dial the number back that they gave you. Find a number out for yourself because you don't want to be calling the fraudster back.
So, Jacqui, Leon has come up with a good question, which is, his banker does a good job and calls him from time to time about issues. How can he be absolutely sure that he's talking to the right person and that that he's not providing for?
So we strongly recommend that clients set up a challenge word, and it's the word that we will actually hold on record. And then when you get a call from someone claiming to be from the bank, actually ask the caller for the challenge password. If they're not able to provide it, then just put the phone down, because we actually had a situation where a client asked someone claiming to be from the bank for the challenge word, and unfortunately they were told that the systems were down, so they couldn't access it. The client unfortunately took the caller at their word, and they continued with the call. It wasn't the bank on the phone, it was a fraudster, and unfortunately the client was defrauded out of several £1,000s. So set yourself a rule that if the bank are on the phone, if they can't provide the challenge word, then ask them to call back when they can. If you don't already have a challenge word in place, then you can set that up with our telephony services, who'll be very happy to take that forward for you.
Thanks. Back to you again.
Thank you. So another increasing type of scam that we see over the phone is called computer takeover scams. Now, there's lots of variations on this one, but we've heard of cases where a fraudster will call claiming to be an IT engineer offering free computer checks, or they could say they're from your broadband provider or Openreach. In those instances, they may say that they're checking for slow broadband in the area. So the caller ID usually on the phone will show the company name, and this is to try and make the scam seem even more believable. They'll probably ask you to perform various checks on your PC, and then they'll ask you to click on a link in an email that they've sent you to confirm your email address. The link actually downloads malware. This then gives the fraudster access to your PC. The fraudster will then take some time to make it look like they're working on the broadband problem or they're running checks on your PC. And then they often show a fake screen so that you can't see what's actually happening in the background. They then often say that they found a virus on your PC, so they're going to try and panic you. And they say that the virus may have impacted your online banking. So they'll ask you to log in so that they can check it hasn't affected it. If you then log into your online banking, as they have control of your computer, they can then start moving your money out of your account without you knowing. Now, these scams are particularly complex and the calls often last 2 to 3 hours. So what can you do to stop this from happening to you? Well, never download software or click on links at the request of someone who has contacted you, as you may be giving them control of your PC without realising it. Don't let someone you don't know or trust have access to your computer, especially remotely. And you should never log on to your online banking if someone else asks you to, particularly if they have access to your PC. Then another type of scam that we're going to cover, and we see it happen an awful lot in the bank, is email hacking. It's an extremely effective fraud and it's responsible for some of the biggest losses, but it's easily avoidable if some simple checks are put in place. So how does it work? Well, fraudsters will hack into email accounts and then monitor the email to try and identify messages that may result in a payment being made. This could be emails asking for prices on tiles for a bathroom, or emails to and from a solicitor relating to a house purchase. When it's time to make the payment, they intercept the email that contains the account details of where to send the money to, and they change them to the account details of their own in the hope that the payment will be sent to them. If they've hacked a genuine message, then these are difficult to spot, as the tone of the message will be the same and only the payment information will have changed. Alternatively, they could create a bogus email that again advises where to send the payment. But a bogus email will look genuine because the scammers will use the information they've got from previous emails or the internet to get logos, directors' names and signatures. However, in cases like this, the spelling, punctuation and grammar are often incorrect, and these should automatically ring warning bells with you, even if you are expecting the email. So I'm going to go on now to a real case that happened to one of our clients. The scam began by the fraudster hacking into the email of the client who was in the process of buying her first property. She was receiving some financial help from her parents who were paying the deposit for her, and she'd been emailing them backwards and forwards regularly, keeping them up to date on how the purchase was progressing. She then received this email from the solicitors saying it was time to pay the deposit. Our client forwarded the message on to her parents, asking them to make the payment for her. However, unfortunately, her email was intercepted and the account details changed to the fraudster's account. Her parents paid the funds away to the wrong account, and it wasn't discovered until a day or two later when the solicitor contacted the client to find out why the deposit hadn't been sent. By then, it was too late to recover the money, and the impact was devastating to the whole family. So what can you do to protect yourself from this type of scam? Well, we recommend that you always verify new payment instructions or any changes to existing bank account details with the beneficiary using a trusted telephone number that you know to be true. Never use the telephone numbers or email addresses from the payment instructions, as the fraudsters will have changed these too. And check that the email address, check it by hovering over it. Does it look different to what you would expect? Check carefully because, as Penny said, a number 1 can easily be changed to look like a letter L. Now I'm just going to touch on purchase scams. We know another way that fraudsters will try and target us is by setting up fake websites selling goods. They'll take the money but never send the items. But another approach is where a fraudster monitors traffic on websites that are used to book villas abroad. When we're allowed to travel again, you might see a villa that you like online and message the owner to ask a question. This message is intercepted by the fraudster, and they then reply and start up a conversation pretending to be the villa owner. The fraudster offers you a discount, and as you decide to book the villa, but the discount is only available to you if you agree to send the money direct to them rather than using the payment method built into the website. The money then gets sent to the fraudster. However, the villa isn't booked, so the owner never gets the money and you don't get the holiday. So things to be mindful of when you're buying online. Always make sure that you're using a genuine website and that the offer is real. If you're buying from a website that you don't know, research it and make sure that it is reputable. We know that fraudsters set up websites with misspelled addresses that are similar to the authentic ones, so pay careful attention to these. And always ensure you stay within the website to make the payments. If an online seller asks you to send money direct from your bank to theirs, don't. And use trusted payment methods like MasterCard or Visa to pay for goods. And carefully follow the scam advice on auction sites such as eBay and Gumtree to help protect yourself further.
I'm sorry, I've done the classic Zoom thing. I'm not unmuting myself. Thanks, Jacqui, for that. I've been told by somebody that one should always look for the padlock symbol on a web address. Is that good advice?
Yeah, absolutely. The padlock symbol in the address bar, or a website that starts HTTPS, and I think we show that on the slide. This shows that your data is encrypted and it can't be intercepted when it travels between you and the website owner. But just be mindful, because the presence of a padlock doesn't actually mean that the website itself is genuine. So make sure, if it's a website you don't tend to use or haven't used before, make sure you really do research the website to make sure it is reputable.
Thanks.
So I'm just going to pass over now to Penny, who's going to talk about investment scams.
Thank you. So investment scams, where criminals steal the money that you want to invest. Last year, each person that was a victim of this type of scam lost around £45,000 each. Scammers are known to set up and advertise using fake websites, or they may contact you out of the blue by phone, email, or text with the promise of investments that have great returns. More often than not, it turns out that the schemes are worthless or don't exist at all. Lots of investment scams involve Bitcoin, and whilst Bitcoin is not a scam in itself, as authorities can't follow the money and they're not regulated in the UK, it does make these types of scams ideal for fraudsters. So professional-looking websites, adverts, or social media posts don't always mean that an investment opportunity is genuine. Criminals can use the names of well-known brands or individuals to make their scams appear real. Thoroughly research the product being offered and ensure that the company offering the product is legitimate. Check that the company is not listed on the FCA warning list. And don't be led by what others are investing in. Word of mouth can be dangerous, as others could be caught up in the scam themselves without knowing. Call your banker or your financial advisor before you commit to any investment. And don't be rushed or pressurised into making a decision. A genuine bank or financial organisation won't pressurise you into investing quickly. And finally, remember, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is.
That is good advice. Now, Nigel asks, how can he be sure, how can he check that a company is registered with the Financial Conduct Authority, with the FCA? Stuart, is it easy to do that?
Yes, it's pretty straightforward. The FCA's got a nice register of all firms who are registered with them, which you can access on their website, which is fca.org.uk. And of course, if you're any doubt at all, just give us a call. We're very aware of many of the regulated providers that are operating. And we know most of those legitimate organisations, so we can always check for you.
Thanks. Great. Back to the presentation. Who's next?
It's back to me, and we're going to look at courier card scams. Thank you. Fraudsters posing as policemen or bank staff will call you and say there's been a fraud on your account. As part of the conversation, they'll tell you that they need to send a courier to collect your card and PIN to help with the investigation. Another story they may tell you is that someone has been arrested with a counterfeit card that has your name on it, and the only way they can prove it's a counterfeit is by having the original in their possession, so they need to come and collect it from you. Someone dressed as the police and often prepared with a fake crime reference number will then come to your home to collect the card and PIN. Obviously, once the fraudster has these, they can then use them to carry out fraudulent transactions on your account. So how can you protect yourself? Simply never give away your card and PIN to absolutely anyone. And although not a scam, I'd like to take the opportunity to mention card fraud here. This is where personal information is stolen from a card, or the card itself is stolen and used to purchase goods in your name or obtain unauthorised funds from your account. Plastic card fraud can also include card not present fraud, where a fraudster uses your card to buy something online, over the phone, or by mail order. So never let your cards or card details out of your sight, and never hand over your card to do a contactless payment. Always shield your PIN from any prying eyes or hidden cameras when using a cash machine or making purchases. Where possible, try and use cash machines that are located inside a branch. And if your card is taken by a cash machine, call the bank straight away. It may have been taken due to a fault, but occasionally fraudsters will attach card trapping devices to cash machines. And once you walk away, they will remove your card from the slot. When shopping online, be discriminate about where you shop and who you share your card details with. Minimise the number of websites you use and only enter your details on trusted sites. Should you decide to use a different website, then see what the reviews say about their service first before you give away any of your card details. Never give out one-time passcodes that are sent to your phone, as the person asking for them will be trying to make a fraudulent transaction using your card. Only a fraudster would be asking for these, even if they say they are the bank or the police. And be careful of any emails or text messages that ask you to update your card details, even if they come from a company that you use. As sometimes people get caught off guard and click on a link to update their card details, and then later on, when the card is defrauded, it turns out that it was a scam.
Thanks. Now, Stuart, I often carry a couple of sort of backup cards that I don't use very often in case of emergency. Is this a sensible thing to do?
So I think you should always have more than one way of making a payment available to you, and having perhaps two cards is okay. But we'd recommend you reduce the number of cards you hold overall to the minimum you need to achieve that, and close down any that you're no longer using, because they get forgotten about and they can easily fall into the wrong hands. Some of the new technology also really helps you with this. So if you use Apple Pay or Google Pay, then essentially you can load your card up on your mobile phone, which gives you a further contingency. And obviously, if you do find any of your cards are lost or stolen, you just don't know where they are, report them as quickly as you can to us, please, so that we can block them for you and protect you.
Thanks a lot. Right, back to the presentation. Thanks.
So I'm just going to talk now quickly about relationship scams. And this type of scam plays on emotions. Scammers will strike up relationships and build trust with a victim, sometimes chatting several times a day over many months. And we know of cases where clients have been befriended, and after a while, the scammer will mention that they or someone close to them is in trouble and needs help, usually financial. Feeling that they want to support their new friend, the client offers to help and sends a payment, sometimes more than once and over a long period of time. Ultimately, the friend disappears along with the money. And this scam has an emotional impact as well as a financial one, as someone the victim trusted has betrayed them in a very cruel way. So things to look out for. We'll never send money to someone you haven't met in person. And be wary of people you haven't known very long asking for financial help. And always ask yourself, how well do you truly know this person, and could they be scamming you? Now just moving on to scam which particularly targets businesses, but you still may come across it. Invoice redirection is where a fraudster creates a bogus letter or email asking for an existing supplier's bank details to be changed to their own. The hope is that you or the finance team of a business will change the payee information that you hold online to the new account details, so that any future bills or invoices are redirected and paid to the fraudster's account. In cases where this has happened, we've often seen several payments made before the real supplier chases the missing payments and the scam is discovered, by which time the funds are long gone.
Unfortunately, we've seen this happen a lot. And it's not just companies, it can affect charities, trusts, many other entities. And a very similar scam we see is impersonation fraud. And this is where an email is sent by a fraudster to a member of staff in that company's finance team, for example. And the fraudster is pretending to be somebody senior within the firm. And we know how hierarchical some places are, so perhaps they're pretending to be the CEO or maybe the overall finance director. And they instruct a member of staff to urgently make a payment on their behalf. And then that member of staff does just as requested, only to find out that what they've just done it sent the money to a fraudster's account, and they weren't talking to their senior member of staff at all. It was the fraudster.
So what can you do to protect yourself from these types of scams? Well, very similar to the advice that we gave with email hacking, we would always recommend that you verify new payment instructions or changes to existing bank account details with the person expecting the payment, and do it before you update your systems or online banking or send any money. And always contact them using a trusted number, a number that you know to be true. And if a payment does come from someone within your business or someone that you know, pick up the phone to check the details, or in more normal times when we're allowed back into the office or to meet people, pop and see them and check that the information is genuine and it has actually come from them. So these are all the scams we're going to cover today, but I'm just going to pass you back to Penny for some final general advice.
Thank you. So how do we protect you at the bank? We use sophisticated technology and work hard to identify unusual activity to help keep your money safe. For example, we use a voice recognition system that allows us to identify our clients, but we also load up bad voices so we can identify fraudsters that are calling in as well. As Jacqui mentioned, you can ask us to set up a challenge password, which can be a word or a phrase of your choice. This is a great way to protect yourself from fraudsters who call pretending to be from us. As if they stumble when asked to provide the correct answer, just put the phone down, as it's not us. Absolutely have the confidence to do that. We also prompt you to stop and think before making payments when using our online or telephony services. We've introduced the confirmation of payee scheme. This means that payee names will be checked against the bank account details quoted. Make sure you enter the recipient's name in full and avoid using abbreviations or nicknames. If you ever get a response that states that the details do not match, then be extremely wary of making the payment until you've had the opportunity to check the details with the person you're sending the money to. We also have a wide range of materials and tips available online on our fraud pages, which you can access via our main homepage. And to finish, should you have any suspicions that you've been a victim of fraud, please get in touch with the bank as soon as possible, as we can protect your account and look to bring any money back. You should also report all cases of successful and attempted fraud to Action Fraud, either online or by calling them. There is now a single place that we can all use to report suspicious emails. It's report@phishing.gov.uk, and your report of a fraudulent email could stop someone else from being scammed. And of course, if you're ever in danger, then speak to the police immediately on 999.
Well, thank you, Jacqui and Penny, and of course, Stuart. That's been, I hope, a useful session. We've answered some of the questions that have come in from clients and friends, but we're going to try and do a few more now that have come in during the course of the call, and some others. So, and Stuart's going to pick up some of these, I think. Peter asks, a good old tech person like me, is it safer from fraud to use a check rather than online payments? I like my Coutts checkbook, and I like my child's checkbook before I had that. So what about checks?
So you will not be surprised to hear that fraudsters are also enjoying trying to put fraudulent checks through as well. So I think my guidance would be, as I said at the beginning, our online systems are very, very safe. The challenge the fraudsters are making is to target you as an individual. So if you're certain it's the right payment to make, then it's absolutely secure to make it via online payments. That is what you should do, rather than trying to resort to a nice old-fashioned check, which will take a lot longer to get the money to the person you want to get the money to, and is also still, sadly, the subject of fraudulent attacks.
Thanks. Next one, we've touched on this, but it's an important subject. Chris asks, can I ask what the bank's procedure is with regards to receiving large amounts of money, for example, from the sale of property from solicitors, in order to avoid scammers diverting it to a rogue account?
So you're right. During the presentation, we touched on that in some detail. Perhaps to sort of broaden out the answer, it is some years since we were prepared to make a payment based on an email because it was so dangerous. And we would reinforce to yourselves that if you're being asked to make a payment anywhere by email, ring up the person on a genuine number that you know to verify those payment details before you make it.
Thanks. Now, Anthony asks, and I'd like to ask this question myself too, as a matter of fact. If a message pops up on my computer screen saying this is coming from Microsoft, say, or from the virus protection company which I'm paying, saying that updated software needs to be installed, how do I know it's genuine?
So this is a really tricky one. I think if you take a step back, the best advice is to actually configure your computer so that those updates for Microsoft and your virus software happen automatically. It's always best to have the most up-to-date software. So if you configure that, then it'll happen for you. Otherwise, I think the question you have to ask yourself is that your software? Are you expecting an update? And basically verify on that basis. I don't know whether Penny or Jacqui have got any additional advice we could give our friends on this.
No, I think you've absolutely covered it there, Stuart. Perfect advice. Automatic updates is definitely the best way to go, definitely.
Well, on the laptop that I'm using in the depths of the countryside in Somerset, where I'm locked down, I'm going to get my son-in-law, with whom I'm locked down, to check that I've got that installed on my laptop. Now, because he's very savvy about these things. Eddie and Anne ask, we frequently get calls advising us of services that are corrupted, that'll be cut off, and inviting us to press 1 to speak to a help service. We never press 1, they're sensible people, but cut the call and eradicate the number. However, we wonder what the consequences are if we do press 1, which some less suspicious persons might do. What's going on there?
So these fraudsters are running themselves as companies. So they're using software to dial out to people to essentially get the next call for them to handle. That's why they're doing automatically. So they don't have to dial all the numbers. And if you're not there, they'd be wasting their time. So they're being very efficient about what they're doing. If you do press 1, you'll get put through to somebody who will then start a socially engineered script to try and hoodwink you and to start to gather data from you. And it could simply be a very blatant thing that we might say around there's a fraud on your account. It could be something like that. It could be, hi, I'm from Microsoft, your PC is corrupted, we need to get access to it. It could be a whole range of things. But the basic message is, don't let them use your time up. You're doing the right thing, keep the phone down.
Right, thanks. Here's another one. Oh yes, here's one for you, Stuart. Janet says, I've read in the press recently the banks are considering increasing the amount that we can do by tap from £45 to £100. What extra security will be put in place? It would seem that cards will be more attractive to criminals if that happens. How about that?
Yeah, so that's we've always, with cards, we want to balance making sure we get the best experience for our clients whilst balancing fraud. What's changed from the very early days of contactless cards is that whilst it might not be obvious to us as users of the cards, is actually every single contactless transaction is being verified at the time it's being used. So we as a bank get a chance to look at fraud patterns, look at activity, and basically keep on top of things. So I'm very keen we can increase the limit as soon as that's possible across the industry. And I would encourage you to enjoy it and enjoy it safely. Clearly keep control of your cards. Please make me look after those. But let us worry about watching any fraud on that.
Thanks. Mark asks, and this is something that once happened to me, is card cloning in shops, actually in my case it was a restaurant, is card cloning in shops still a problem?
It is, but obviously in lockdown, the opportunity to do that has disappeared. So our fraud friends have found other ways of doing it, but it will come back, sadly. So the old adage of never hand your card over to anybody else, always keep it in sight, remains. You treat it like cash, essentially. You wouldn't hand it away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, we're beginning to come to the end, I think. And I think I hope this has been helpful. The topic impacts all of us at one time or another. We haven't discussed much, and perhaps Stuart and I could have a little bit of a conversation about this, is why do we all fall victim to fraud? Now, first of all, there are a couple of slogans I want to sort of leave with you. If it looks too good, it is most likely too good. People offering amazing discounts or quick wins of one kind or another. In a way, those are relatively easy to get now, but not always. It's these more subtle ones. I think another thing that we should consider is the sort of, I'm going to offend somebody by saying this, but we're all very polite in this country. And when we get somebody, you heard on that recording of the fraudster, a very nice sounding person in a way, didn't sound like a criminal, you know, and you feel it's rude to put the receiver down and say, and get rid of them like that. I remember the chief constable of Avon and Somerset once saying to me that if this was before internet crime, if half the criminals he had to deal with didn't look like bishops, his job would be much easier. Now, they sound like bishops too, and I'm going to offend all the bishops now. But you know what I mean, that these are not crude people, these are subtle people, well-trained, part of big gangs, and they take care to sound like the people you might be talking to, sound like bank people. And we've got to be, haven't we, Stuart, a bit tougher about saying, I don't like the sound of this, I'm just putting the receiver down.
Absolutely, and I'll even use the word almost rude it will feel to us, but it's the right thing to do. These are conmen. And if anybody from a legitimate organization rings you up and you put the phone down because you're unsure, they will understand. You know, we talked about the challenge word earlier. If you haven't got a challenge word set up with your bank, ring us up and let's set that up for you. And if the fraudster goes, oh, I haven't got it, the systems aren't working, no, none of our employees are going to say that. So please be a bit more skeptical and a bit more selfish, I would say, in terms of your time. I know they're not easy words, but it's important not to let people get the better of you and to play on our collective desire to want to be helpful and particularly helpful to society.
It's sad in a way because we all want to trust each other, but when it comes to dealing with money, you have to be skeptical, and that's exactly the right word. And take time. I think either Jacqui or Penny said this during the presentation. It's never the deal that you've got to do in the next 3 minutes to get the money back or something. Put the receiver down, think about it, talk to someone, ring your banker. There'll always be time to consider. And above all, if it's something coming from an alleged government department, I can tell you as somebody who's presided over government departments, they're very unlikely to be doing something extremely fast at the last moment. They go along in a ponderous way. So if it's somebody saying you've got to pay your TV license or your car registration or something like that, there's plenty of time, and talk to someone. And then if you're in doubt, talk to your banker. And that is one of the great services you have as clients of our bank, that we really do have people you can talk to. So thank you very much today to Stuart, to Penny and to Jacqui and all the staff who work with them. There's a big staff behind them throughout the bank trying to make you safe. We've covered a great many of the techniques that they use today, but there will be new ones. The attack is always trying to change itself and get round the defense. It's not for nothing that they're a bit like viruses, these people. So there may be questions that come out of this today that people want to follow up. And if you want to learn more about how we're tackling fraud in general, you can access the recording of this event to look at some of the questions that we didn't have time to answer. We can visit our dedicated fraud pages on our main home site to do that, our main homepage to do that, to answer further questions. Or please ring your banker, and as happened in a previous session, if the banker finds this is a more technical question then he or she is immediately able to answer, they'll put you on to Jacqui, Penny, or others of the staff to talk it through. So do follow up if you want further information and research. And thank you all for taking the time today, and I hope it's been helpful. Goodbye now.